hoses, your points in the distributor, your fuel pumps, and your fan belt. If you make sure that you've got all of those, generally speaking, you're going to make it. I mean, you can have some catastrophic failures with your starter and that kind of thing, but really and truly, if the car has a good cooling system, the hoses are good, the belts are good, and the fuel pumps both work, you're going to make it. And that's really the big fear with old cars, as I understand it, is breaking down at the side of the road, and then what do you do? So if you clear it up before you get on the road, you're gonna enjoy the old cars, and you're gonna show everybody how great they are, rather than be that person that needs help at the side of the road. So with a little bit of forethought and planning, you can make it, make the old car as reliable as a modern car. So hoses, obviously, you should give yourself if you own the car for a long period of time, it's easy because you keep a lifespan. Hoses, brake hoses, those kinds of things should last a certain length of time. We know from history that Rolls-Royce brake hoses and any car brake hoses are really only good for 10 years. I mean, that's it. And there are certain things on the hoses, there's a crisscross pattern, and those hoses haven't been around for over 20 years, probably 25 years. And there's cars out there, we see cars with that crisscross pattern, and you're asking for trouble. Again, with tyres are things that only have a lifespan, and I mean the sun affects them. Driving the car, you get small punctures, water gets into the steel belts make the rubber loose, so there's a breakdown. Even though it doesn't look like they're bad, it's probably better to use a time frame on your car. And certainly if you're going to keep the car for a period of time, it's good to say, okay, we'll start with changing the hoses, we'll change all the hoses, and then we'll keep a log of things. I work for a guy with a big car collection, and we keep a book in every car. We keep what the work we did, when we did it, so that when we take that car out, we know the length of time and that kind of thing. So that's it. There's also, you go through the book and you read the book, and there are some changes as time goes on. There's one reference in the book where it said, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, or words to that effect. Well, that's good, but as things get older, you do need to change them. You do need to, belts have a certain length of time, they stretch. You get going down the road, the belt stretches because it's old, then you're not charging, so you're at the side of the road because you haven't got any battery left and that kind of thing. So if you're going to run the car, and I encourage people to use the cars, drive them. They're good, they're reliable. As long as you've taken care of it, you can enjoy them, you can run them. We're gonna drive a bunch of cars out from Kansas City out to meet there in Reno, or near Reno, Tahoe, and we enjoy it. We enjoy it. So the cars are for driving, enjoying. That's my take on the Rolls-Royce cars. So, and as I say, so we worry about looking at the belts, we worry about the hoses and things, but they're long term. I mean, you change those, you're good for 10 years, and you should do it on a 10-year basis, and you'll be good. The brake fluid, we've learned from the history again. We've been doing this for a long time. Brake fluid is probably only good for 2 years. If you change your brake fluid, it takes the moisture out of it and all of the things that cause corrosion and the like in the brakes. So that's a good thing. Hoses, as I say, at the most 10 years. Some people will say, oh, I'm going to change mine every 5 years, which isn't a bad idea because that takes away any of those things. Hoses, hose clamps, brake fluid, and then of course the distributor. If you're running a car with points and condenser, you can keep your eye on the points and condenser. They're probably good for a 6,000 mile period. When we used to service these cars from new, we would be changing points every 12,000 miles and looking at them every 6,000 miles, because the cars were in everyday use. So that's obviously old cars don't get that kind of use anymore, so you need to address these things before you go on a long trip, and if you don't ever go on a long trip, you need to address them, you know, over a given length of time, probably that. Of course, the fluid levels, you're going to check them on an ongoing basis. Old cars tend to leak anyway, so you really want to keep your eye on the fluids. Coolant's very important, because a pint or a couple of quarts of coolant low and you're going to destroy something. A couple of quarts of oil low, it's not such a bad deal. So coolant is more important than oil from that respect, but both of them are important. I'm not trying to say one is more important than the other, but that's to emphasize the importance of coolant, because coolant kind of sneaks up on you, you know, everything's good, and then all of a sudden now it's too low and you've got heating problems.
Where do you recommend getting coolant?
Well, I've been working on a car getting ready for the Mille Miglia, and my boss is totally paranoid about overheating, and I've been doing a lot of research on different things, and I think the waterless coolant for our use is the best. The reasons I say that is the corrosion protection of a waterless coolant is way higher than propylene glycol or glycol, and it's more expensive to put in, but once you put it in, as long as it doesn't leak, you've got it made. One of the problems with the waterless coolant is it will find small leaks and it will drip out. So new hoses, make sure you look good, and that's probably the way to go. That probably will save you all kinds of things down the road. It depends on what you've got the car for, what your usage is, that kind of thing. I work on the principle that you want to have the car to drive. I mean, that's what I'm basing what I'm telling you on. So, spark plugs, any more spark plugs? One of the biggest changes to the cars, of course, is chemistry. The chemistry of the oils, transmission fluids, gasoline. You know, when I started out in 1965 working on these cars, and in 1965 the average time before you needed to do something major to the engine was about 25 to 35,000 miles. We were taking the heads off and what we called decoating the engines. That was, we were taking the valves out, cleaning the carbon off there, cutting the seats, doing that. And that was an ongoing thing. Every car that got to about 35,000 miles was out the head repair. And that was purely because the fuels that they were burning just weren't as clean as they are today. They just weren't. And the same with the transmissions. We were doing transmissions at 80,000 miles. That was what you could expect to get out of an automatic transmission like this. So the transmission was good for 80,000 miles. Today, they make transmissions, they don't even ever take the fluid out of. And if a transmission today, a modern transmission, overheats, you just won't let it cool down and it will go again. Well, you know, the rubber seals in the transmission using old fluids would burn, you know, would absolutely burn. The carbon inside an old transmission is incredible. All over the parts you get this real dark crust. It's not a crust that you can feel, but for what you've got to wash it up. You take this transmission and run it on with a synthetic transmission oil for probably as little as 20,000 miles. That inside of that transmission is totally clean. I mean, totally clean. So chemistry is making these things last longer and longer and longer. Same, to a point, the same with engine oils. You know, when synthetic oils first came out, everybody was, synthetic oil, it'll make your car leak, it'll make your car leak. But it's gone so far that if you rebuild an engine and you run it on nothing but synthetic oil, it's going to last way longer. I mean, way longer.
So you recommend synthetic oil for this car?
I do, yeah. I mean, it's a personal thing and you've got to get it through your mind. But to me, because of the change of chemistry, that is why I'm saying that. I wouldn't have maybe said that 10 years ago.
But that's after it's been rebuilt and it's got all new seals. That's when you can put the new.
Well, this engine doesn't really have seals like, you know, a conventional engine.
Right.
And So that isn't a thing, but yeah, again, synthetic oil will find more leaks and more things. So it's a question of what you do. And the problem with putting synthetic oil in an old engine is it's going to clean everything out. So it might cause the engine to get noisier and those kinds of things. So there's some things to consider if you want to do it. But certainly if it's a rebuilt engine that's clean, definitely use it.
Slope transfer clean. Isn't the transmission of this an adaptation of the general turbo? I mean, hydromatic?
Yes. But it was made by Rolls-Royce. It was totally, all the parts were made by Rolls-Royce.
It is a hydromatic basis.
It's designed the same as the hydromatic, yeah.
I know the gearboxes have well oil transmission fluid.
Yeah,
Well oil.
they said in the
Not enough wells in the world before.
Well, he's correct about synthetic. It will help it tremendously.
So the other thing he's done underneath the car, on the top of the car, it's always good to keep lubrication of the door locks. You know, these cars sit around, they get gummed up and that kind of thing. So you should look after that. What we'll do is we'll do a light check on this car just so that you understand all of the different lights that are there. So if I've got somebody at the back and somebody at the front, we've got the indicators. We got one at the back.
Yep.
We've got one over there.
Yep.
So we've got brake lights.
Yep.